Okay, how's it going? How's your weekend? Did you all like the tech challenge? Yay, okay, I'm glad you liked it. The prizes are on their way, so I'll give them to you all when they come if you won. Well, and if you participated, there's like also extra stuff that I'll give to you all too, if you came. Yay. Okay, so because it is your homecoming week, I've scheduled a bunch of tech talks for you all, so it'll be a very chill week of assignments and classes. But I just want you all to give your full attention to the Googlers that I have invited to come speak to you all. So yes, we have tech talks, and then exciting opportunity. All of the Googlers, almost all of them, are going to be based in Nashville. Only one of them is not. That's going to be my manager, actually, who wanted to come and talk to y'all too. So yeah, they will be coming to class, sharing all these insights about working at Google, about their work. So yeah, please be respectful and give them your undivided attention. And today's agenda, which will be the same agenda as Wednesday and Friday, will be 2 tech talks each day, and then a 5-minute Q&A after. So yeah, you'll be able to ask some questions if you have any or have any that come to mind. And then afterwards, we'll do attendance and feedback. So I am taking attendance this week, and then we'll do reminders. So we will first get started with Zach here. So here are Zach's slides. So yeah. Okay. And then I'll let Zach take it away. Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Hello. Raise your hand and we'll talk about it. So thought I'd start just like my background, my computer science journey. I graduated from Xavier University in Cincinnati. I had a double major of math and computer science. I actually was added to my intro to CS class by my advisor because they said computer science and math like went well together, and then I really fell in love with like the problem solving aspect of everything and how it can be kind of tough to figure out how these different parts work together, but when it works it feels great and you can see your efforts sort of manifested. I've worked at a couple of different companies throughout the years. I worked in healthcare. I worked in banking. I've worked at Google actually 2 different times. Once working on the Meet or video meetings team, and that was out in Seattle. And then more recently in Nashville, I worked for the Google Fiber, which is the internet service provider arm, I guess, team of Google as a software engineer and a data engineer, helping with operations and network. So like everything you would think that the internet service provider would want to know, like the infrastructure, all our customers, and like how many devices are on our network, all of those sorts of data points I handle and deal with. Let me see. One sort of common theme, at least in my career, has been centered around data. So I worked with like prescription and medical data in the healthcare world. I was actually on a data analytics team when I worked with the meetings team, and now more formalized as like a data engineer flavor of software engineering, which is kind of fun. It fits in with my math background and aligns with my interests, but I will say that like the data engineering stuff is more than just like you might think, oh, it's like statistics or certain things, but actually kind of explain what all goes into it because it's interesting to me, so I'll share it with you. My analogy that I came up with is like the data engineering team kind of is like a restaurant. So in a restaurant, the ingredients come from a variety of different sources. Maybe they're of differing qualities, and eventually it has to get to the customer as a nice presented dish. And like, how do you do that? Well, In a restaurant, you want to check the all your ingredients come in, make sure everything is like not bad. You clean it, you prep it, and put it together in meaningful ways or interesting ways, and then give it to the customer. Sort of similarly, with data engineering, we have a variety of sources where the data comes in. So sort of like I said, networking data I work with a lot, but also like Wi-Fi data. There's also how many customers do we have, or how many devices are there on the network. So multiple different sources. Some of it is updated every day, every hour, every more frequently than an hour. And then some is sort of like a long lasting data. So we have to figure out, one, is it correct? We validate it, and then we clean the data, put it in a format that all of the disparate sources will play nice together, and then save it for use later. And then what I think of as kind of like the kitchen at time for service in the restaurant. The cooks come in, they'll take all of the prepped ingredients, cook them up and combine them. Well, with the data, we take our data tables, transform them, maybe take bits and pieces from different data sources and combine them to answer questions for our stakeholders, which really runs the gamut. So like other software engineers might want to know, how is their tool that they built performing, or has it made an impact? But then there's also like a business side of people that want to know, are we doing well? Are we growing customers? Are we do we have any like outages where the network is down and that's bad and we need to fix it? That sort of thing. So really get to interact with a lot of different types of people. And then the final thing is kind of like, you can go to different types of restaurants. Maybe you have like a buffet where you have all the ingredients laid out and then you get to put together your salad or your bowl or whatever. And that's one way of doing it. Or you could go to like a fancier restaurant where they make the plate up all nice for you and present it to you. And they're like, this is, what we've done. There's different ways of interacting with it. And sort of similarly with data engineering, like you could have, here I've presented all of these tables, and if you are familiar with what is going on, you can sort of mix and match the data how you want to answer your questions. But then on the flip side, you could also have like a pretty dashboard that's visualized with colors and charts and like presented to, say, maybe like the business side or the higher ups that want to know at a high level how everything's doing. So there's different ways detail that you can kind of jump in there. So that's like a little bit about what I do. Let's see, another thing. So another thing that is kind of interesting that might be relevant to you. So like thinking from school setting, like you usually have your own projects, and maybe you might have partners or like teams, or I don't know how you do your projects, but you're mostly doing everything like start to end. And that I kind of think is like, maybe you're at home in your kitchen and you're making a meal for yourself. You're doing the whole process. You're putting together all the ingredients. At the end, you have to do all the dishes, and you're the one that gets to see enjoy the final product. But at like in the larger, what's the word? Industry, I guess. I don't know. When you like at Google, there's a lot of people working together as a team, sort of like a bigger restaurant kitchen. Like one person wouldn't be able to create all of the dishes for a restaurant in one night. Similarly, we have a bunch of data and a bunch of different tools and systems and sources at Google, and we need lots of people working together to sort of make everything run smoothly. So that's one thing that's kind of, I guess, different and has been interesting, is how everyone works together like in a collaborative way in the, like at Google on my team, beyond what you might be doing here for this class. Yeah. So that was like kind of my little bit about what I do. Happy to take any questions or dive into any more specifics. Yeah, I see you in the back. Yes, I have. Yes, that's correct. What's your least favorite part? Least favorite part? That's a good question. It can be, so like I said, the collaboration is very important, and having everyone sort of aligned on how we want to do stuff is important. And so to do that, like on our team, we have sort of standards that we follow and process. So every time we want to make a code change, we'll get it peer reviewed and then be able to check that in. So there can be like working together with people can be great and can also be frustrating sometimes. I'm sure if you've ever done a project with more than one person, you are familiar. So that's just figuring out how to navigate that. And it's not like a bad thing. I don't want to say it like that, but it can just be, you want to make sure everyone is on the same page and aligned in where they want to go. Yeah, I don't know if that answered the question, but that's sort of how I feel about it.
I would agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that what I like about the work, there's a lot of standards and processes. You can just like decide one day that you want to do it this way, which is how my experience was at startup. But at Google, I think sometimes it gets to a point where it's so slow. Everything is so slow because of how maybe like bureaucratic things are, because of like the hierarchies that exist. But they exist for a reason, so there's trade-offs to everything. But yeah, the slowness of it is what I think is scary part.
And even on top of that, like I said, I worked in banking for a little bit. The red tape and bureaucracy there was even so much worse. That's actually why I was like, don't want to do that anymore. So, and like some of it is important, you know, financials, you want to make sure you have lots of safeguards in place, but it was almost too restrictive. So Google's a good balance. Yeah.
So you started off at Epic.
Mm-hmm.
How does that set you up for the rest? Like, is there anything that maybe when people are early on in their careers, is there something specific that or a role they should be looking for, or a specific type of company that might help them in the future?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't really use like the healthcare specific knowledge that I gained, but I do use like my experience to build on. So I would say, like, if there's something you're interested in and you have an opportunity to go work in that, definitely go take it. Like at Epic, we used really old software language called Cache, which I doubt anyone here knows what it is, but it was like from the 70s and it was really old. And I was like, this is awful. Like, I'm not going to be able to get another job because I've been, you know, pigeonholed into this one very specific thing. But actually, knowing sort of, I mean, basically the fundamentals of computer science and how to put all of the different building blocks together in interesting and creative ways. Like those sort of concepts can apply across languages and across companies. So like when I went from Epic and went to Google, like the interview process was a lot about like, do you have a really good understanding of the fundamentals of computer science? Can you do interesting things with them? And sort of going back to that problem solving aspect, can you work your way around problems and figure out how to make things work? So I will say, like, in terms of like what languages you know or don't, as long as it's one that's widely used currently, I wouldn't say you have to pigeonhole yourself into one or another. Actually, like the whole ChatGPT, Google Gemini, like AI thing has been helpful from the perspective of, okay, I know I want to do this concept. I want to write a for loop, or I want to write a class in a language I've never really used before. How does this particular language structure that? And like the AIs are good at least about giving you like the framework, and then you're like, oh, okay, these are things I'm familiar with. Let me just plug it in, and you can go from there. So yeah, it's like all about the fundamentals and working, figuring out how to work with like the team and just getting the experience that can be helpful. I think she was first, and then you. Yeah, so I left Google in 2019. Actually, for personal reasons, I wanted to move to Nashville. I wanted to be closer to family. At that time, I guess I didn't do enough research. I wasn't aware that there was a Google Fiber arm in Nashville, but UBS is. And so I changed jobs and moved, because I used to live in Seattle, Washington. I'll say I didn't like want to leave. I did enjoy my time on the Hangouts or meetings team, and I was like learning a lot. When I switched to the financial industry, it was like, it wasn't my favorite time in working, but it was helpful because that showed me a lot of like, within Google, we build a lot of our own tools and sort of put them together. Working for the bank, I use a lot of software as a service or like third-party tools that you have to combine in different ways to do basically the same stuff. So it really allowed me to see what's out there and get a different experience. It also introduced a lot more like bureaucracy and stuff that I found I didn't like. But then when I went back to Google, I think I was contacted by a recruiter, but they told me about Google Fiber here in Nashville, because there's internet service in Nashville for G Fiber, and was able to come back in, and that was, I've been happier now. Yeah.
You know that you have experience in healthcare, banking, banking slash fintech, and also like in the tech industry.
Mhm.
Do you feel like you wish you started from Google Direct, like throughout from the start, just like from Google, and like just but like you actually like appreciate the experience that you gotta choose all down. Maybe like when you're solving a particular problem, you're like, oh, the healthcare industry, you like this, you like this, you like that, you like that.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. So I do appreciate my time at all of my locations. I didn't know, I guess, sort of what I wanted when I was coming out of school. So Epic was a good first job. Like it introduced me to different concepts. I got into sort of like data pipelines and data processing. So that was helpful. I don't know if I would have like been able to discover that if I had gone to Google directly out of school, because when I applied to Google, I knew I was interested in like the data analytics side of things, so I was able to, I guess, steer my interview in a direction that went towards those teams. Yeah, so it was a good experience. Like it's been about 3 years there, and um, appreciate what I learned, and then it's time to move on. I guess makes sense. think you had your hand up. Yeah. So when I started, it was the end of like the Hangouts era and just starting to integrate Google Meet into like the Google Workspace and in with to measure like echo interference and just different things. So yeah, we collectively moved that into like a better position in sort of where they are now. Okay, sorry. I mean, you did have your hand up before, so.
So about a month ago, I found this website called buildbygoogle.com. Google created that, where it's all the product discontinued by Google, and it's almost $296, I guess. So in a product, usually there are a large group of people working on it, right? So when Google like abruptly discontinues it, what happens to the team or group of people working on it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what happens to the people? They're not like they're redistributed, I would say, to other teams. Like in the case of Hangouts, Google Hangouts really isn't a thing anymore, but it sort of became Google Meet. So a lot of people just sort of merged into the new team. There's a good internal mobility, like we have an internal job board within Google for because there's so many different teams that do so many different disparate things. Like you can talk to different areas of the company if you want to work on like Gmail or search, or there's big effort in ads or YouTube, or really goes on and on and on, or like Google Cloud. Yeah, there's so many. So they kind of get redistributed. But also with that, like, yeah, there's a lot of products that have sort of been turned down. But another thing I'll say towards that is like they weren't just completely thrown out, like the applications. Maybe they're not customer facing or public facing anymore, but bits and pieces of those have been taken and repackaged and are used to help build the new stuff. Like I know at least the one that's on the top of my head is like G Plus or Google Circle. I don't know. They're like social network thing that everyone in the public thought was like a big flop, but I guess Google took that as like the identity management. Oh, you have a.
It's a virtual one, yeah. So you can yeah. I can pull it up.
Oh no.
Finish your thought.
And like now you have a Google like account that manages Gmail and all of your like Google Docs and your YouTube account, like it's all one. So they repackage those pieces and sort of use them in other places. But in terms of the people, yeah, like you either go to another team and if you want to pick another interest, yeah, you can follow it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thanks so much.
Cool.
Happy Monday. I hope you all have all gotten out and gotten a minute in the sunshine. It's so nice. Cool. I'm Margaret Hart, and I have gotten to meet Jessica as she has spent her time here in Nashville with you guys, which has been so much fun. Y'all are so lucky to have her. I hope y'all are having a good semester so far. So I actually sit on a very, very different team than Jessica does. I work on the YouTube team. So I actually very specifically work on the YouTube team with our music partners. So I have been working on our music team for the past 13 years here. So I've been at it for a really, really long time. So I will start at not quite like the full beginning, but the beginning of my career for you guys, just because I think I'm from Arkansas. I definitely had no connections into the music industry growing up. That was not, I didn't even really know it was a possibility to work in music, until pretty late. And once I figured out that you could work in the music business and you didn't have to have like music talent, you could actually just work on the business side, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I'm from Arkansas. I went to college in Mississippi, and kind of along the way, I just started trying to figure out how I could get my foot in the door in the music industry. So in college, I did a lot of kind of like the student programming stuff. So booking artists on campus to come perform and things like that. And then I also, each summer of college, I actually moved kind of to different places wherever I could get a job and figure out how to intern in the music industry. And so, I had some really terrible internships, which is part of interning, guys. Don't be discouraged if you show up in an internship and it's kind of awful. Internships are great for ruling out maybe what you don't want to do. So I spent a lot of time in my summers during college in internships and really just kind of learning all the parts of the music business, because there are so many layers to it and so many different players. You've got the live space and everything on that side, from the venues to the promoters to the agents. You've got the recorded music space, which is all the labels. And then you have the publishers, and that's all the people who write the songs and make the songs. And so it's such a complex industry. I really just spent my internships during college figuring out who all the players were in the music industry, and what all of these different people who are listed. So this will age me, that were listed in the liner notes of my CDs, which is how I listen to my music. They had liner notes. And so they would thank people in the liner notes. And so, it'd say like, I'm so grateful to my management team at wherever they are. And I'm so thankful to my label and my publisher. And so just kind of really putting those pieces together was like kind of part one of like getting into the music business for me. So when I graduated from college, I luckily landed a job in LA at a talent agency. So I worked at a talent agency for the first 4 years of my career in Los Angeles. And generally what a talent agent does in the music space is they book shows. So if you go see your favorite artist live, there is an agent that represents that artist, and they do all of their touring, all of the business side of their touring. So they decide what markets they should play in. They decide how big the room should be. So should they play to 200 people or should they play to 2,000 people? They make sure the artist gets paid. They make sure if the artist is going overseas, they have all the right paperwork in place. They really do the end-to-end of getting artists to their shows. And so that is traditionally what a talent agency does. Now, I entered the business in 2008. And yes, I realize many of you probably weren't thinking about business in 2008 because you were very young. So the really crazy thing happening at the time was really the internet becoming social. So becoming a place where you shared music and listened to music and watched videos, and you were on Facebook. Instagram didn't exist yet. Twitter was happening. It was a new platform. So all of a sudden the internet went from kind of this like kind of nerdy place where you could kind of like search things and like, it was like sort of useful to like, it started to become what you guys use it as today, which is this central point for communication and culture and all of the things that kind of run our day-to-day lives. All of a sudden that kind of started to sneak in. So as I was at this talent agency, it's called William Morris, which a really, really large talent agency. I got really interested in this whole digital space. I was like, seems like this is happening. Seems like things are going on there. And so we had this really tiny department that was focused on digital. And so they were kind of just like a new startup department. No one really knew what they did. And I was like, I want to go work in that department. So I don't think I want to book shows my whole life. I don't think that's like the best use of my skill set. I want to go work in this digital department. And so when I was at William Morris and I kind of jumped into that boat, I was literally starting profiles on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube for the first time ever for artists of all shapes and sizes. So literally everyone from Steve Martin and Eddie Murphy to, Echo and the Bunnymen and an indie band called Metric. Like these, we're talking about like very early days of like having a social presence on the internet. Like most of these artists had a website, but that was it. So I really kind of came into the industry at a time where all of a sudden you needed to have this social presence, and this social media was a really big part of your brand all of a sudden. And so I really looked at that, and it was really exciting to me. At the same time, I looked around and I was like, digital is like not a core part of this business. Like there are not people here that know about digital in this building. These are talent agents. They are deal makers. They are not digital tech people. And so I started looking at my partners that I worked with. So I worked directly with Facebook. I worked directly with YouTube and Twitter. And I kind of started to try and figure out how I could get my foot in the door at one of those companies. Cause I was like, I think that's where all the people that know about digital stuff are. And I want to go there because I want to get smarter and I want to get better at all this kind of digital, whatever it is coming down the tracks. And so I made the jump to YouTube. And that was in late 2011. And so I made the jump and I went to YouTube, and I have been here since. So been here a really, really long time. And my job, and the reason I think so many of us on the team have been here so long, is because the job has looked so many different ways in the time that I've been here. So when I joined YouTube, and again, you guys will probably be too young to remember this, but when I joined YouTube, the entire industry really, really disliked us. Everybody who held rights on the music side thought that we were stealing money from them. We weren't paying them enough money if we were paying them. And no one had an understanding of the ads revenue business, because it was not a core business for any content creator in 2011. And so my early days here was literally just to be a friendly face to the music industry and explain at the most basic terms. Okay, so when you put a video on YouTube and there's an ad on it, YouTube gets some of that money and you get some of that money. And that is how ad revenue works. And eventually, as you get lots and lots of views, you will get more money for this piece of content that you've put here. And so that was like wave one of just like, here's what ad revenue is. And then the really fun next thing that happened is, so we call it UGC internally. So this is user-generated content. And user-generated content is all of that content you see out there that has artist songs on top of it. So it's a dance trend, it's a photo montage, it's a beauty video, it's whatever you watch on YouTube. A lot of it has music behind it. So that was kind of the next thing the industry was very upset about, was this UGC content and how like our music is everywhere and just anyone's allowed to use it. And how are we getting paid for this? And so on the product side, I still think this is just like one of the coolest products built. I think it's amazing. We built a content ID platform during this time. And so what this content ID platform does is basically it took all of the music in the world that was submitted to us. So if we had a deal with Universal Music Group, they upload all of their music into the back end of YouTube. So not front end, not where you could see it, because we didn't even have a streaming service at this point, remember? So this was all just like in the back end, like you didn't know it was there. So then if I go and I upload a cooking video and I want to put music behind it, and I put my favorite whoever song behind it, all of a sudden I'm going to upload it, and that piece of content is going to be scanned against every single piece of music that exists in YouTube. So I'm still going to be able to upload it. That's cool. But what it's going to do is it's going to flag it, and it's going to say, actually, that video has a Taylor Swift song on it. Universal Music owns that Taylor Swift song. Cool if you go ahead and post it. But Universal Music is going to monetize. They're going to make money off the ads that run on that video now, because they own the IP. That's theirs. It belongs to them. So our content ID system, and it really truly is just like so amazing. literally takes in all of the IP in the world and scans all of the content uploaded to our platform against it so that the proper people get paid out. And so that was kind of like the next phase of like my life here was like, UGC isn't a bad thing. You don't need to go take it all down. You should leave it up because this is actually becoming your street team. So back in the day, there were real street teams. They were actually out on the street on college campuses and in downtowns handing out flyers about shows and new albums and stuff. But all of a sudden, that was not existing as much in this new digital age. And so there became this really cool kind of marketing narrative that YouTube and all of these creators making content with your music, that's your street team. Those are the people marketing for you. And so we really were able to work with the industry thanks to Content ID and like change the narrative on UGC content and go, no, this is good. This is helping you. This is actually pushing your artists forward and expanding their brand far beyond what you can do. And so that was super exciting. And it was really fun to kind of watch the industry come around on that a bit. So that was kind of like the second phase. And then the kind of third and most recent phase is the subscription platform. So for a lot of YouTube's existence, we're an ad revenue platform. That's how we make money. But over the past, really starting in around 2018, we started to really see the need for a subscription service. So somewhere that you could pay to basically have kind of a Spotify-like, product on YouTube. So we launched the current phase, so YouTube Music. We launched in 2019, I think. And so this was basically our kind of response to Amazon had a streaming service and Apple has a streaming service, and there's obviously Spotify. And how do we kind of super serve people who use YouTube to listen to their music? And how do we kind of give them this like elevated kind of music experience on the platform? And so does anyone use YouTube Premium? Does anyone pay to have ads removed on YouTube? Yes. Okay. We have a couple of hands. It's great. I realize it is expensive. So down the road, I will say removing ads on YouTube is like life-changing. It's amazing. Highly recommend. So what we did is we thought about our own streaming services. We didn't just go, okay, we're going to make this like other platform and like, you can go subscribe to it and it's going to be where you like stream your music. What we've done is we've kind of bundled together two things. So a lot of people over the years have wanted to be able to pay for YouTube and not have ads. They've wanted to be able to offline content so you can watch YouTube while you're on a plane or a train or whatever. And so those were two things that, and also you'll probably notice when you're watching YouTube on your phone and then you go to another window, if you aren't a subscriber, it closes it out for you. Huge pain point for users. So we launched, what we did instead of just launching YouTube Music as a competitor to all the other music services is we said, we're going to launch YouTube Premium. And so YouTube Premium is the ability on youtube.com. You have all the ads removed. You do all the things I just talked about. Within that, you also get YouTube Music, which is a streaming service. So it's a separate app. So you have youtube.com as usual, all your content is there, but we also have YouTube Music, which is a second app that's only music focused. So you're going to open it up. It's going to feel a lot more like a streaming service. So you're going to be served albums, you're going to be served podcasts, you're going to be served kind of all of the typical things that would be in a streaming service. And that business has been really incredibly successful for us. We've surpassed 100 million subscribers across our premium services to date. And it has been not only just a huge win for our users, but it's driven a lot of revenue back into all of the businesses we work in, music included. So that is your like very quick, I've been here 13 years and those are like the distinct phases as I have seen them. And then I'll spend a couple of minutes talking about just like what my job is, like what do I actually do here? Because I think that's always helpful. And I'll also, because I know some of y'all are more like, computer science focused. I will talk about my job, but then I'm also going to tell y'all a little bit about some of the teams I work with regularly that hit y'all's world a little bit more. So I sit on a team called the Label Partnerships team. And so what I do is I basically oversee the industry in Nashville. So I oversee our label partners, our industry partners. So I'm working with all the labels in town, country and not country. So I work across genres. And basically I educate them. So I make sure that they know about all the latest information from our side. I work with them on artist releases to make sure that, the marketing opportunities that we have, we're pairing with their really, really important releases. So on the marketing side, we have out of home, we have socials, we have some living room promotion that we do. We have promotion on youtube.com/music. So we have a lot of different kind of what we call levers that we can pull around an artist release. And then I'm also doing, I'm meeting with artists and talking to them about how they can utilize all of the different tools that we have on the platform to really ensure that they're kind of getting their music as far and wide as possible. And then I am also, spending a lot of time in the data and kind of helping them understand, hey, this is working, this isn't working. Hey, have you noticed this thing's happening in shorts? Let's talk about that. Let's see if we can like help push it a little bit further. So there's definitely always a big data aspect, pretty much any job across Google, by the way. So yeah, I spend a lot of time with partners. I spend a lot of time externally making sure our partners are happy, making sure they really understand our product, and ensuring that as YouTube, we're also across like the biggest artist moments happening out in the industry. So there are people that also sit in New York, LA, London, and all over the world doing this job as well. And a lot of kind of the reason that this team exists is to kind of make sure our partners are happy, make sure that they're using our platform to the best of their abilities. And it really helps with kind of our holistic like relationship with the partner. So kind of one way that this looks is I, work with a bunch of Universal Music Group labels in Nashville. Well, when we go to try and renegotiate our deal with UMG for all of their content to come to YouTube, it's important that we have good relationships and we have lots of positive things to tell them about the work that we're doing. And so all the work that I do and other people that work with UMG labels do kind of rolls up into this like cohesive kind of strategy and message back with Universal Music so that we are in a good position to go and talk to them about rights on their music when we have to renegotiate. So that's kind of just like from the business side, like why kind of the team that I sit on exists, and we kind of exist to serve the partner, but also to serve the YouTube side and to ensure that we're in a good position with our partners on an ongoing basis, because having music rights is really, really important for YouTube. It would be a really kind of sad place if we didn't have music rights. So that is kind of like my day-to-day with the partner. And then across music, so I work very closely with a lot of our product teams. So we have specific music product teams. So we have teams that are thinking about just artist analytics. So what are the analytics that an artist team needs to see, and how is that different than a creator on YouTube? We have teams that just focus on the Shorts platform. And they only think about music on the Shorts platform. So if you post a short and you use music, there's a little bug that comes up in the bottom left-hand corner that says what that music is, and it links you out to what we call a pivot page. So you click on the little bug in the lower left, it's going to pop out the video for that song or the full track, and you're going to be able to add it to a playlist, come back to it later. So we have a Shorts product team, but we also have people on the music team that are thinking about that Shorts product and how artists are represented within it. We also have, I'm trying to think of all the different teams that we work with. We have a fan team. So we have a team right now as we go into next year. There's a big narrative within the music industry right now about kind of what we call super fans. So who are your like most loyal fans? How do you communicate with them? How do you give them special special treatment? How do you make them feel like the super fans that they are? So we actually have a whole product team right now that is just focused on thinking about how to create great fan experiences on YouTube. So step one, how do you define a super fan? And how do you call it out in the analytics while staying within all of the privacy regulations that we have? So that's step one. How do you just identify a super fan for a partner? And then step two is, once you identify them, what do you do with them? What do you want to, do they get a special badge if they're a top 1% listener? Do they get invited to watch the music video an hour before everyone else gets to watch the music video? So the product team that's thinking about fandom is at this point, they've thrown it all up against the wall. And now they're trying to bring it back to me and the team that I sit on to say, what do your partners want? What are they going to be excited about? Here are the 10 things we think we can do. What are the 3 things your partners want to be able to do with their super fans? And how do they want to access them? So I get to interact with a lot of different product teams, which is really, really fun, actually. I really enjoy that piece. It's very dynamic work, and it's so many layers of what does our business need and what does the partner business need and how do we all bring it together in this product. And then I also work with our UX teams. So these are our user experience teams, and all they think about is what are you seeing on your side and how are you interacting with it? Does it look good? Is it leading you to click on the right places? Is it meeting your needs when you come to YouTube? And so the UX teams are, a lot of times they're kind of hyper specialized on kind of different experiences within YouTube. And they are very research heavy. So a lot of their time is spent in like feedback sessions with users, asking them questions, asking them about how they do or don't use certain parts of YouTube, why they might not use that. So that is a whole layer on the product team. And then the piece that they kind of keep us away from are the engineers. So I don't talk to the engineers as much. We use the product team as our conduit into the engineering team, though we do have a little bit of representation here and there with that team. But for the most part, I would say product and UX are like my main entry points into the product workflow. And then the product teams are really great about kind of packaging that up, taking it to the engineering leads and figuring out how to prioritize resources, i.e. people to build things, and kind of how we can prioritize that. So a lot of times we're talking about things happening 3 to 5 years from now. So a lot of times our timelines it would be lovely if we could build it, we could have an idea and build it in 2025, but that's just not how things work here, as Jessica well knows. So a lot of the timelines we're talking about is like anticipating needs of our industry and how we can get ahead of it and make sure that we're resourced properly. Okay, I think I'm going to be done now talking, so you guys can have questions if you have any.
Yeah, thanks so much, Margaret.
Oh.
Yeah, let's give Margaret a round of applause.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, I think we don't have enough time for questions, if that's okay. But if they have any, I'll pass them over to you.
Send them my way. You know where to find me.
Yes, I will. And then, I'll just probably end class with some reminders. So thanks again, Margaret.
Thanks, y'all. Bye, crew.
Bye. Hopefully you can see everyone.
I can, yes. Thank y'all so much.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. Okay. Thank you all for giving Zach and Margaret such great attention. Okay, so I'd really like to track attendance this week as part of your homework grade. So if you all could fill out this form, it'll take you like a minute. So don't worry, just make sure to put your name. And as you're filling that out, just some reminders. So project 2, part 2, don't forget, is due tonight. There's no extension on the deadline. So once it closes in EdStem, that's when it's done. And homework 9, don't forget, is due Wednesday. Big O notation practice. And then the midterm exam 2 corrections are due less than a week from today, or maybe about a week. You have it until Tuesday. So whenever the last office hours are with the TAs, don't forget that those are due. And then quiz 8 retakes. If you didn't email me this weekend, that's okay. I will allow anyone that wants to do a retake to do it. And because Big O notation is a little bit weird to get the hang of, we can do it together. So we can do it as a group together if you all come to my office hours if you want a better grade than what you scored on Friday. And yeah, homecoming week is this week, so there's no project 2 part 3 this week. There's no quiz this week, but there is a homework. So homework 10 is just to reflect on the talks that happened this week. Yeah, so you just have to answer a question. It's really easy, so don't worry about it. And then, yeah, grades should be up to date, but let me know if there's any issues, and I'll try to be good about updating them as we go. And then last thing, if you want extra help from Googlers and career coaches, they're there to help you. So yeah, thanks again for giving them your attention today. And then yeah, see you all Wednesday for more fun tech talks. Yeah, you're welcome. No, that's a different form. So fill out the form in this link. Yeah, so this form specifically. So go to the slides and then go to this link. Don't go to the one that we usually fill out. You do have lab tomorrow. It's an interview prep session. So I think it'll be very helpful for you all. If you don't want to come. Okay. Okay, yeah, let me know if you have any questions.
Let me get out in front of this thing. Today we'll talk about sort of like my background a little bit, my journey at Google, and then maybe some learnings as well. And we'll keep it interactive, so please ask me questions along the way. All right, so background. Grew up in the Midwest, grew up in Minnesota, went to a liberal arts school, not too dissimilar from your liberal arts education here. I studied music and actually economics, a double major. I know, an odd combination. I see some looks there. That's good. My first role, I actually was in the creative industry. So I worked at an advertising agency that made music for TV and film. I did that, which is super different, by the way, than like what I do today at Google. Yeah. Did that for a year, and then I transitioned into more of the corporate world, and was in sort of like industrial sales for about a year, and then I transitioned to tech sales at a company called SAP, and then lastly, this is where the story gets interesting. I quit, and I started my own sort of like analytics consulting firm, and that was a crazy decision that I'll talk about it a little bit later, but was actually like a super instrumental part of me getting to Google. So how did my Google journey get started? As I mentioned, I was working a corporate sort of like tech sales job, and quit and started my own analytics consultancy. And actually was in Iceland on a trip with some friends, and Google reached out. They somehow found me. And that was just a few months after starting that firm. And then just a few months after that, I started at Google. It was my first day. But a bit of an unconventional story, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So at Google, I've had 3 roles. I'll talk about these in a little bit of detail. So the first is it's called an account strategist. And so an account strategist is basically someone who partners with like really high potential startups, specifically marketing folks, VPs of marketing, CMOs, and helps them grow their business through digital ads. Got to work with companies across all sorts of different verticals and company sizes, and it was a super fun role. From there, I transitioned actually into more like strategy and operations. So I ran strategy and operations for one of our sales teams, and this team we grew. It was a very fun time. We grew the team from about 3x in terms of headcount and impact to over $1 billion in incrementality in 18 months. That was during the very e-commerce heavy like COVID times as well. And then lastly, I sit now as a program manager on a data science team. So what the heck does that mean? What that means is I work with about 60 data scientists, product data scientists, on our search and our shopping products. And my job is to oversee all the proactive insight generation, and experimentation in the operations. And basically, the data scientists have a mandate to uncover growth opportunities for the Google business. So like a crazy kind of variety of roles. I'm going to stop there though. What questions do we have about the journey, the roles? Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 So like what makes a startup high potential, basically? Yeah, I think a couple of things. The first would be you have to have product market fit. That's what it's called. So essentially you have a product or service that has matched a market need. And then also you need distribution, which is kind of what we helped with. So you have the product that's built and validated with like a target audience. And then you have to get it out into the world. And that's kind of what we would come along and help with on the digital advertising side. It would either be through like often Google ads, another popular platform is Facebook or Meta ads. But yeah, the product market fit and the distribution are probably the two most important pieces. Yeah.
Did you say that when you were from working as an account strategist to being a program manager, that you had to gain more technical computer science skills?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the question was like, how do you go from being an account strategist to a program manager on a data science team? So I come from a non-technical background. The program manager role is semi-technical, I would call it. But yeah, I mean, there's sort of like a stepwise journey here. So this role, my sort of strategy with it essentially was like, I was very analytical and product and tech focused. And then in the second role, I worked with data scientists a lot. And so I sort of had like that natural progression, I guess. So although I don't have like a comp sci degree, a CS degree, I have always been involved in like technical projects on the side, and always really enjoyed working with technical folks. So yeah, so there's like some interesting shifts in this story, but really when you sort of layer it down, it's actually there's a lot of adjacencies to all the roles that kind of build into a common theme. Yeah. 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 Say, what was the last part? Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you that this team was essentially built as like an accelerator for like high growth startups. And so the question was like, how did you do that in 18 months, basically, right? A few things. Number one, what I would say is, we have systems at Google and an amazing product on the ad side. So in a lot of cases, it wasn't net new customer acquisition. It was sort of like growing existing customers. But we have amazing tools and scale at Google. The second piece I'd say is we benefited from the kind of like the market timing. So this was during like the 2021, 2022 like e-commerce boom with COVID. And so you had a lot of businesses that were thinking about how do I sort of expand my presence online? And then specifically, like what did we do to enable this? I would say two things. The first is we're very data driven. So we're using data science in all parts of the business to make very like informed investment decisions. So that was number one. And I got to work with the data science team super closely, which was awesome. The second piece was really good operations. So having sat in the seat and talked to hundreds of customers and also worked with a lot of different sales folks, I kind of understood like the unique challenges of our customers and our salespeople, and so you can build like really, hopefully, helpful operational processes that can like help you scale. So those would be the 4 things that I would say. Yeah, good question. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Was this something that happened in the business that contributed to you even wanting to work on Google?
Yeah. So the story was like, hey, man, you like quit your job and started a business, and then like you ended up at Google. Like, what about your business, right? So this is going to get to like the learning piece I'll share in the next slide, but quitting the sort of traditional corporate job and like going down that entrepreneurial journey was kind of a gutsy move. Now, doing those kind of things earlier in your career is much easier than doing them later. But yeah, it wasn't like necessarily looking for a job, which I think is a bit atypical. But actually, I spoke with the recruiter, and he had told me that he was searching for someone who had a marketing background, who had sales experience. And the last thing is he was looking for someone who was entrepreneurial. So basically, I think if I wouldn't have, left that traditional role and started the business, they might not have found me. In terms of what the business was, it was a services business. So I was doing analytics consulting for like middle market businesses, helping them understand their marketing attribution. So essentially, it was just like services consulting, and then my ambition was eventually to kind of build that up into maybe a product. But yeah, very, very, very early days of the business. But this came along, and it turned out to be a really amazing opportunity. Let me go to the next slide, and then I'll take a few more questions. So learnings, gosh, it's a lot of words. So a couple things. Number one is that careers are fluid, and it's super important to always be learning. Non-traditional backgrounds are okay, and in fact, I think they're great. Having that liberal arts experience, that multidisciplinary sort of perspective is super, super important. But it's up to you to always be learning. You should always be learning in every role that you're in every class that you're in. That is your responsibility. Like I said, make sure you're developing in everything that you do. And it's a bit of an extreme statement, but I think there's a sliver of truth in it that traditional playbooks now are sort of like thrown out the window. And what I mean by that is the world is moving so quickly and evolving so quickly, specifically in the tech space, that even what's relevant a year ago or 2 years ago might not be as relevant 2 years from today. So you really have to think about being adaptable. And I think that liberal arts experience definitely lends itself to that piece as well. The second piece is relationships matter. Relationships are certainly like your biggest asset. They'll help you get a job and help you grow within companies. And what people say matters. You need to nurture those sort of things. And soft skills is really what makes a great leader. So make sure to develop those. And you could develop those through maybe clubs that you're leading on campus or other initiatives or things like this. It doesn't have to necessarily be in the business world, but think about how you're influencing people, how you're leading, how you're shaping strategy of anything. Those are really, really important skills. The third piece, a bit of contradictory advice, is have a plan and a strategy and then change it a lot. And what I mean by that is it's really great to dream and to have ambitions, but you need to have a tactical plan about how to get from point A to point B. But consistent with the first point that I mentioned, the world changes super quickly. And so you have to be flexible, and in some cases, maybe open to changing your plan if the information changes or things like that. It's important to set goals and be disciplined, but like I said, be flexible. And then another one is study strategy. There's some really interesting books about sort of like strategic thinking that have been super helpful and influential to me. And it's a topic that isn't necessarily like taught in school a lot, like strategy, but it's super important. Fourth piece is learn about AI. Love it or hate it, AI is changing the world as we speak. Even for me now at Google, like our CEO, we just had our earnings call last Tuesday, and our CEO mentioned that 25% of the code at Google is at least AI assisted that's being created. So even at a place like Google, you're seeing a lot of augmentation of human work with AI. And then there's going to be, I think, at least there would be a skill disparity between those who are really good and know how to use AI and those that don't in their job. So it's really important to learn about those tools. And then the last one is balance sort of the head and the heart when you're making decisions. So you need to think about managing yourself well and checking in with yourself, whether it's in school or in work. And think about things like, what are your values? What's the type of life you want to live? And consider all these sorts of things when you're thinking about a career. And the last point is sometimes you have to have guts when you're making a decision. And it's important to know when you should have the guts to make a decision versus when you should be like more strategic or more tactical. And being able to balance those two things, I think, is super, super important. So let me pause there. What questions do we have about this? Yeah.
My question is kind of for both of you. It's a two-part question. So how would you say you use AI in your work, and how do you use AI such that it's helping you and you're not being dependent on it, but then you're not wasting time doing things that it could help you do?
Right. So like, how are we using, the question was, how do we use AI day to day? And then like, maybe like, what is it, what parts of your job is it helping you with? Or,
yeah, and
okay.
then the second question, because like you could just give AI instructions and it could write code for you, but
Yeah.
how do you not, because then you're not doing anything, you're not
Right,
learning. So
right.
how do you use it in a way that's
Okay,
you're
right.
still
How do you
learning?
balance like learning and also like using AI? That's a really great question. So the first piece, and then maybe Zach, I don't know if you have thoughts about this too, but AI, I mean, I use AI. When we say AI now, we're talking more about like the large language models and things like that. So I'll use that as an example. I use, our like internal tools at Google when I'm like, I'm not really having it work from 0 to 1 for me. For me, I like to kind of like say I'm making a presentation or a paper or something. I'll write out what I think I should say and then maybe tweak it and then pop it into Gemini, which is Google's AI tool, and just see kind of if like it can beat anything that I'm doing. Often it does in some cases. So that's number one. And then number two, we do have like some code assist features and things like that, which I don't write a lot of code, but I do use every once in a while. And then the second point of the question, then I'll toss it to Zach. And this is a really important question, which is basically like, hey, in the age of you having this LLM AI tool that knows everything, why do I need to learn? It's I think, a really interesting question. What I would say is there's certainly limits to what AI or LLMs are able to do today, and I'm not an AI or LLM expert, but I think specifically when we think about like what I was sharing with the other group too is like I think you'll see a lot of progress with AI in terms of execution. So like AI may be able to write code, it may be able to plan out a project with like certain steps. But in terms of like the ideation and almost that creative piece and like the sort of like connecting disparate ideas across different disciplines, like I think that's something that's going to take quite a bit longer for AI to be able to do. So I think it's still really important to like learn. And I think in a lot of cases too, if I think of like the modalities I'm interacting with day to day, if I'm in a meeting with someone, I don't have AI to like back me up, right? Like I'm just talking to someone. So I think it's still really important to like invest in these things. And personally, I think learning is cool. Like it's fun. It's fun to get better at something. It's fun to have like mastery or keep learning to achieve mastery in a subject. So yeah, that's what I think in terms of the learning piece. But I don't know if you have thoughts as well.
I think you mentioned like augmenting yourself with AI or your work.
Yeah.
Like if you know the basics, you can either, like I like to use AI to learn more or go deeper into a subject that I already know and want to learn more about. Or like in terms of actual coding, like I know how to generally write programs and how different data structures work or whatever I want to do, but if I want to write it in, say, a new language that I've never used, like, sure, I could go look online at all Stack Overflow comments and be like, okay, how do I do this in this language? Piece it together, or I could tell the Google Gemini, like, oh, okay, like I want to use these variables as structure. Like I'm still kind of conceptualizing the code, but it's helping me with like syntax and then river hunting down the semicolon that you missed or something, like it can reduce those frustrations a lot, which is helpful.
Yeah.
So it's more, adding to your existing skill set knowledge.
Yeah, I think that point of like removing friction in your day-to-day work is super important. Like I probably like information retrieval, I think for AI is a really interesting use case. Google has a product that has achieved some virality recently called Notebook LM, which basically is this tool where you can input like dozens of documents, and then it creates almost like a custom bespoke like chatbot for those artifacts. And then actually it'll even make a podcast for you in like a very, very human-like tone. It's weird. Like if you listen to it, you wouldn't know that a computer made it. Like, and I'd like to think I have a pretty good like ear for that kind of thing. So I think like information retrieval is like a really interesting use case for AI, but you still have to kind of direct it as well. So, yeah. What else? Yeah. Right. Yeah, I wrote that on the board. It's a hard thing to like actually do well. I think it's Jeff Bezos actually that like talks about this. Yeah, I mean, I think there's like a part of it that's just like intuition, I hate to say. Where like if you know that you need to do something, like you should do it. At the same time, like there's probably times where you need to be really like strategic and tactical. And I think if you have, taking more of that like heart type decision in a really strategic environment, it can be tricky. Versus also if you're taking a strategic decision in a more, I don't know, intuitive based environment, like that can also be tricky. So I think there's like a piece about awareness and just like exposing yourself to a lot of different kinds of thinking, a lot of different types of people, and you sort of maybe just like build up a bit of an intuition for it, but it's hard to like codify it super well, I think. But I think it's just something to be aware of, like that you should just be thinking about like, okay, do I need to be like really, really strategic here? Or is this something where like maybe in the long term, like zooming out, often those other, the sort of heart type decisions, you think about on a longer time scale, right? Than like strategic things. So that's something to think about as well. But I honestly, I don't have a good answer. Like, I think it's just something to like be thinking about as you progress through your educational and sort of like career journeys. Yeah. It's a good question though. What else? Yeah. All right. Yeah, it's a good question. So I've been at Google for 5.5 years. Yeah, so almost 2 years in each of these roles ish. Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna take one more. That was a short question. Yeah. Speak up a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. To land a non-technical role or to land a technical role, or both. Yeah. I mean, the profile of like the program manager role that I'm in now, I'd say probably half the people have a technical background and half don't. So I was telling the other group this as well. Like you have to be able to navigate like levels of ambiguity really well. So what that means is like in my day-to-day role, I might have one meeting where I'm working with super like technical stakeholders, right? Like principal engineers on our team, and we're figuring out some problem, and they're doing a lot of like the thinking. I'm maybe kind of helping guide the conversation. And then in the next meeting, 30 minutes later, I might be talking to an executive about like some high level sort of like business proposal. And so you have to be able to like interpret almost between the layers. And I think that's one of the most crucial skills, whether you have a technical background or not, is how can you sort of navigate those abstraction layers to either be able to take something that's technical and make it non-technical, or take something that's non-technical and make it technical, if that makes sense. I think that's like the most crucial skill, especially in this environment where, things are changing so quickly. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, thanks y'all. Here's my like LinkedIn and website and stuff. If you guys have any other questions, I'll stick around for a few more minutes. But yeah, it was awesome chatting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, last thing is some reminders. I'll try to share these out, the slides. Okay. Okay, so feedback. I would like to track your attendance and give you a grade for coming to all these tech talks as well as an assignment for your homework.